You're listening to Soundside. I'm Libby Dankman. The gaming industry in the Pacific Northwest has been dealt some major blows in the past few weeks. Yesterday, Microsoft announced it would be cutting thousands of full-time employees and restructuring their Xbox division, where 1,600 jobs were cut. It's not immediately clear how many of those are in Washington state. Last month, Bellevue-based game studio Bungie announced it would be laying off almost 300 full-time employees here in the state. So what's behind the upheaval in gaming right now, and what does this mean for our favorite franchises? Here to talk me through the latest is Sam Miskovich. He's a freelance journalist who's been following these developments. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So the Microsoft layoffs seem to hit Xbox particularly hard. Can you give us a little context for what's happening to Xbox? Like, what do the numbers mean? Who's impacted? What kind of games are they working on?
Right. Xbox being hit very squarely right now is the latest culmination of a CEO and leadership shakeup at Xbox that has been bubbling for months. There had been a prior chief by the name of Phil Spencer who had come on, and he was arguably the biggest pusher of a program called Xbox Game Pass. This was maybe the biggest subscription-based service in video games up until that point. Essentially, Netflix for games. You pay a monthly fee, you get all you want to play out of a selected pool of games. That seemed to be doing pretty well in terms of bringing fans on who are paying recurring subscription fees. We actually hear about 30 million subscribers is the current estimate. I think it was the Wall Street Journal who cited an anonymous source for that number because Microsoft doesn't say exactly how many. Essentially, still quite a few people brought on. But at the same time, Microsoft said, well, we need content if we're going to be getting people to subscribe and stay subscribed. Now, around the year 2020, money became very cheap. And it seemed like video games were never going to stop making money. You might know about 20 million personal friends who got a Switch and Animal Crossing during lockdown. So all of the industry started snapping up small studios. Microsoft in particular saw value in, if we get studios big, small, and medium, then maybe we can pump out new games every month, every 6 weeks that continue to drive, oh, I should stay subscribed to Game Pass. What a bunch of diverse games ranging from epic, Fallout, and Elder Scrolls style fare to indie, artisan, quirky games. And the result seemed to be working from the public view in terms of content, but there were rumblings that revenue targets weren't getting hit. But that's also unclear because it seems like Xbox, from what I can tell, it's hard to tell the way Microsoft does its math of where's enough revenue, what counts as profit, because they move everything around in all of their silos, whether because cloud's doing really well or because they need to pump up AI, things like that. So we fast forward to a few months ago, and it just seemed like all of Microsoft's moves to acquire studios and put out content weren't clicking. The number of games wasn't happening. The number of Xbox consoles wasn't being sold. The number of people buying into Xbox instead of Sony's PlayStation or Nintendo Switch was not up to what people were expecting. Right now, I think the biggest marker of how Xbox is doing in the you're a game console and your kid buys it to buy cool new games, PlayStation and Grand Theft Auto 6, which isn't out yet, those pre-sales are way bigger on PlayStation than Xbox, reportedly. So all of the powers that be at Microsoft looked at Xbox and said, we're switching out the leadership to Asha Sharma, current CEO, who had been the CEO at Instacart and who had become a big leader at Microsoft's AI division.
Not a gaming person.
Not necessarily.
A business person.
Correct. She's talked about her fandom of games, but none of her specific leadership in the corporate world had been in a gaming company. And after she came on, she brought on other folks that she had worked with at prior companies. Again, more business folks and AI mindset folks than gaming folks. And we fast forward to now. And the call that I am hearing from folks inside of Microsoft is it feels like the Elon Musking of Twitter is happening inside of Xbox. Looking at balance sheets, looking at people reporting to people, saying, why do we have all of these people to do things that we could make more efficient? It's unclear whether that's specifically because they think AI could do it, but it sure seems like Microsoft is the company that loves talking about AI and talking about investments in AI and how much money could be made with AI. So it would not surprise me that behind the scenes, not being told in all of the news out right now, that 1,600 layoffs this week and 1,600 more layoffs over, I believe, the next 12 months is to some extent about removing humans and putting in AI. At the very least, it's definitely about streamlining Xbox and saying, well, we don't want to put out these smaller games that were about Game Pass. Game Pass maybe didn't make the money that we would like to make from a $60 game, an $80 game. And so we're going to pivot to Fallout is a series you've heard of. We'll put out more games that say Fallout in the title, or Halo, or there's another series, Gears of War, things like that.
So these big like tentpole franchises that people recognize, they want more titles under those.
That sounds like what they're saying specifically this week was putting that out there as sort of the big reasoning. But my worry is that this is really more about streamlining, shrinking teams. It was even today that we heard about one of the satellite studios that Microsoft acquired in the past decade. They're called id Software, headquartered near Dallas, Texas, and they just decimated about half of their staff. And id Software is a really interesting example of what I think is happening. They build their own 3D game engine, and not every company makes its own anymore. A lot of companies go to external forces like Unreal or Unity to get the engine that powers the game. And id Software is beloved because their engine is efficient. You can run their games on even the weakest Xbox. Xbox has actually multiple models. There's a discount one, and you can run these games at very high speeds. They're very fluid, and their games are about being fluid and feeling very powerful. And if you're chopping out the people making that engine, and if you're chopping out the QA and debug and bug fixing people,
quality assurance people,
and if that's what is happening, then that's to me sending a really loud signal of why do we have all these humans when we as Microsoft have invested in AI and efficient automatic coding? And whether that really will play out in games is a big question.
So let me ask you about the details of what's happening at Microsoft, because they also announced, Microsoft did, that they're planning on spinning off 5 of these game studios. So Double Fine, Compulsion Games, Undead Labs, Ninja Theory, and Arcane Lion. Is this just a nice way to say they're going to close those studios?
Well,
like they're cutting them off?
Not quite, but anyone listening may not recognize any of those 5 studio names.
I did not. I'm a casual gamer, but I did not recognize any of those publishers.
Those publishers are responsible for your, someone like me, my kind of favorite games. They're the beloved, intelligent or quirky kind of games that would be great for the Xbox Game Pass subscription service. Double Fine is actually best known for, remember the Kinect, that motion sensing thing that Microsoft put out to rival the Wii?
Yeah.
Let's rewind time. Double Fine had made a lot of games in the past, and its developers were part of a company called LucasArts that George Lucas started a long time ago.
Oh my gosh, they made Loom.
Oh, they made all kinds of, they were called point-and-click adventures. But they pivoted. They were smart that said, well, this Kinect thing's doing well. Let's make stuff like that. And they made party games, including a Sesame Street branded party game that did very well. And that was kind of what fueled Microsoft saying you'd be a great studio. And all of those studios had different ways of staying nimble and small and agile and putting out quality, interesting stuff that usually shipped on time. Now, these days, that hasn't been the case. Arcane Lion, they're out of France. They had a series called Dishonored that's very revered, very critically acclaimed. You're sneaking around. You can either use magic or power or stealth to get around. Very cerebral kind of action. Well, they're working on a game based on Marvel's Blade, and that's delayed, and that's behind, and over budget is the report. So when you asked about these 5 studios, what's really happening? This is Microsoft divesting. This is them saying, we spent our money and we're done. You guys figure it out. But it's not a good time. We already talked at the top of the show that Bungie laid people off. Obviously, Microsoft is laying people off in games, and so many other companies are doing the same. So when you tell these 5 studios, you guys get your own funding and get your own deal, you'll be fine. No, the money's not really out there.
The money isn't there. Tell me more about that, because I think of the video game industry as this total juggernaut that outpaces Hollywood for how much it makes, and people are spending so much time on their games. I spend hundreds of hours on certain titles, over hopefully many months, but the amount of time and energy and attachment that fans have to these games, I just think of it as this never-ending growth engine. But what you're saying is there is investment drying up in games. So what's happening in this industry that is making you say the money isn't there?
If you are an investor in games, you no longer look at games as a infinite make money button, especially if it's not a proven IP. So Grand Theft Auto 6 or Madden or EAFC, their soccer series, those are known entities that continue to make money, and shareholders love those series and trust that. But if you are a middle tier company that could go to a publisher like Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft and say, we could get a game out in 18 months and it's quirky and it'll absolutely drive an audience and love you. People are very cool on giving money to those projects right now. Plus, we also have a lot of studios that grew and grew and grew because they said, we need to compete. We need to be the most graphically intense, rich, beautiful, lifelike 3D worlds. That costs a lot of money, a lot of artists, and that stuff takes time, especially if that workflow is a team starting by building a concept art phase to make something that looks that beautiful. Those games are not quick to make like games in the 90s. So you end up with companies like Ubisoft and EA that overextended, especially, like I said, in the free money period, where they spent way too long making these games, costing a lot, and now they're laying off. So even if there is money out there, you're still competing with everybody else who's been laid off. So it is a interesting double-edged sword of, if you're a hit, you can make all the money and everyone's going to play your game and talk about it. The money is there. It's a billions-dollar industry, but also the jobs aren't there and the investment isn't necessarily there. And it's kind of wild.
So what about indie studios? Does that mean they're kind of up a creek without a paddle right now, and the only thing that's viable is existing big-time IP?
Absolutely not. If you're an indie studio, you have opportunities to break through and make money. And if you're nimble about it and jump in where people are playing games, you can make that money. You can make money as a part-time coder in Roblox, where a lot of kids are spending a lot of money. You're making these very bizarre games. In fact, a lot of people will just spit them out quickly and just make a little bit per game and pump them out every 2 weeks. Fortnite has a similar concept where you create islands that use Fortnite assets, and Fortnite makes most of the money, but you still make a little. And then there's Steam, which is a computer-centric platform where you can put out a game and get to the top of the charts if you strike, if you get that impact with influencers, YouTubers, and young audiences see those people and say, I want to be part of this party. This is happening a lot right now with co-op games and quirky games. The current titan is a little game out of China called Mecha Chameleon. You are a little person who can blend into an environment. You change the color to look like what's around you, and everyone else is looking for you. It's hide and seek with a modern twist. It came out of nowhere, but everyone just started recommending it to each other, and it blew up. But for every one of those, there's thousands of other games that come out every day. If you even go to Steam or phone places right now, the listings are massive. So it's easier than ever to publish, which means it's easier than ever to get lost.
You talked about the development time that it takes to make a game, from concept art, there's story, there's got to be writers, there's obviously people, working in the graphics space and building these things, so engineers. How many of those jobs right now are actively being replaced by AI?
It's hard to say depending on the company, but there is absolutely a push-pull between management saying we can make things more efficient. We can even make it a limited AI is what they'll call it, where it's just their own in-house work that's been done by prior artists, meaning it's not pulling from a copyright touchy pool. And then you've got the rank and file that say, well, when you replace workers that way, concept art or engineers or QA and bug hunting, you're removing that pipeline of creating a 5, 10, 15, 20-year studio where young staffs are working together and learning from each other. So that stuff is happening. And it's hard to say exactly how much, and how much is being cleaned up, meaning if the AI spits out an image that's gibberish and you've got a whole team that's hunting for the gibberish, for the bugs in the code, or even the splotchy generated art. I mean, goodness, that's the thing you'll see on Reddit is people will go into these games and discover the AI generated thing. Mm-hmm. You get one thing wrong, you're doing this to a gaming audience that loves solving puzzles and finding the hidden clues. They are finding it, they're exposing it, and they're giving a big fat thumbs down. It's unclear how much is happening. We know it's happening, and we know that when it's seen by that very savvy audience, they don't like it, which is to say, I think companies continue to wrestle with whether it's really a good idea or not. Although it seems like the folks at the top have been given marching orders, especially at Xbox, to say it's a good idea.
I remember the Claire Obscure scandal where their publisher, Sandfall Interactive, got caught using AI to do textures on some backgrounds, and they had their Indie Game of the Year reward rescinded over that. So this is something that fans have been pushing back on, but it does seem like it's looming large as people are shedding headcount. They're looking at ways to streamline. They're looking at messaging to investors to say that we are, focused on the AI future. At the same time, we're hearing from Microsoft's chief people officer, Amy Coleman, who said this week that these employees who are being cut will not be replaced by AI. So that includes, the employees across sales and then across the Xbox division. I don't know. How do we reconcile those two messages? I
don't completely trust Microsoft because that's an easy statement to make if you are able to, for example, pay an agency. That's sort of a middleman that can then have contractors do that work. So technically, Microsoft is saying something true, but yet also automation and what I call extrusion, meaning their generative AI, is still somehow in place. So I think it's very important to them for their gaming first audience, their very vocal critics who light up places like X and other sort of toxic platforms, that they are going to say, well, it's people first. But like I called out with id Software, I don't know how you cut a team like that in half and not say, well, we don't need your really robust engine. Unreal Engine 6 was just announced. It has a lot of AI in it, but they're making it, which is a way to say we're getting AI into the works without actually directly paying for it, without giving it to what we call a blue badge, the full-time employees at Microsoft. Anyone who's worked at Microsoft and hears me say that knows what I'm talking about, where contractors and third-party firms and overseas firms can find ways to sneak AI into what's being done. So I don't immediately trust it. That is wait and see, and the numbers will speak for themselves for time to come.
We've got a couple minutes left, and I'm just curious what you think going forward this could mean for the type of titles that gamers see coming out. I mean, Bungie, again, has, a huge game, Destiny 2. It's one of the biggest free-to-play games out there. A lot of job losses there in Bellevue. Xbox, obviously, with Activision, Blizzard, all the various publishers that are under their purview have a ton of titles that people love to play. What do you think is next for gamers and what they might see?
I've been looking at and reviewing games for 30 years, and I've seen multiple waves of, it can't be done this way. We need to lay off. We need to pull back. The PlayStation 2 era actually had quite a glut of games filling store shelves at Best Buy and not selling, and teams getting laid off. The same cycle is going to play out here, like with any other entertainment industry, in my opinion, where small, nimble, interesting things are what get kids excited. They don't want to see the same thing over and over. They want to see what's punk, what's new, what's fresh. So the cycle will continue where these platforms where young creators can get out and show stuff off will pop off, and then the larger companies will chase it and try to embrace it. Microsoft did a fantastic job with this with Minecraft. It was blowing up, but still small, and they took it, shepherded it, left it alone, and sold merch and added really clever ways to keep that series going. And the fact that right now...
I forgot that Microsoft has Minecraft.
Well, here's the thing. Asha just announced, CEO of Microsoft, that she is going to be heading not only the Minecraft team, but also the Candy Crush team, or they're going to report directly to her. They're taking away that abstraction. And I think this is going to more spell doom in the short term for Microsoft's shepherding of what they have currently. And I don't know that it sets them up for success to incubate and build the stuff that gets people excited, that says this is the cool place to be. And I think that's just going to create that shift right now. I think what happens from here on out is that Microsoft is either building up Xbox as a showcase for AI, and it's going to come at the cost of cool games, or they're going to prep it to sell. They're going to take the Xbox division and sell it off. That had been rumored to break it apart from the corporate structure, which I still think ultimately for games means that the big players will shift around. There will be layoffs, but cool games will still get made and promoted, and the cycle will continue between booms and busts.
Sam Miskovich is a freelance journalist covering the gaming industry, and he was here navigating us through the layoffs at Xbox and Bungie and Bellevue. Sam, thank you so much. And how can people follow you if they want to know more and follow your coverage?
Sure. My website is samred.com or samred at Blue Sky, where all of us raging liberals hate on AI.
Is that a reference to your hair color?
Possibly.
The red. Okay, cool. Just checking. Thanks for listening to Soundside. Don't forget you can listen live on KUOW 94.9 Seattle at noon and 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, or anytime right here online at KUOW.org, or of course on your favorite podcast app.